if that ain't the sound of like the toilet bowl after way too much Taco Bell. You know what I'm saying? That is the cry for more toilet paper. Almost didn't get there in time. Anyway, listen, I hate to say I told you so, but I think I told you so. This is one of those things. A while ago, I made this video here, and it was all about the Quad Cortex Mini, and the whole thing was like, you know, Quad Cortex or Neural, they showed up to NAMM, or rather, they didn't show up to NAMM, and they just had these big letters that said "soon," and it's like, what soon? And so we figured, okay, it wouldn't be, you know, at the time. That basically the crux of that video is, it's not the upcoming store, it's not compatibility for plugins going on to the QC, because they had already announced those. So why would they go like soon? We're going to announce something. It implies it's something new. And so I made a video where I basically said, hey, Quad Cortex is, I think they're talking about new hardware, unless you're talking about some new capability we don't know about, like tones going into your brain or something. But I figured it was probably hardware, and I just made the case where I said they're probably not going to go bigger because they're already like the most powerful thing on the market, and they're updating and they're doing more stuff. I doubt they're running into those limitations. They can always, make the software, the effects smaller, because they've already done that with the reverbs one time. So it would stand to reason in a future update they could actually rewrite things and make things smaller if they were ever running out of DSP. But their whole thing is it's the most powerful thing on the market. Nothing touches it yet in terms of just raw horsepower DSP. So it must be something smaller. And at the time, obviously, Tonex was big, and Tonex was having their, I think, their first show, maybe the second show. I can't remember. But it was the second show, but it was like the first big show since it had been out, and they were just about to release the Tonex 1. So what do I think Quad Cortex is releasing here? Well, there's these leaked photos, and here you can see that this is the Nano Cortex, and it has the ability, I'm going to guess, here's what I'm going on record. This is the HX Stomp of the neural ecosystem. So what Helix, this is to QC as HX Stomp is to Helix. There you go. That's an SAT question for you. Fit that in your head. This Nano Cortex is to Quad Cortex as HX Stomp is to Helix. And by that I mean, I'm going to guess it has half the processing power. They're not calling it dual cortex because I think they want to bring to your attention how small it is and how friendly it is for a pedal board. Now, the QC is not oversized for a pedal board. In fact, they really did a smart thing. They released the QC at what I think is the perfect size, in that it's not too small to be an all-in-one. I never felt like the buttons were hard to hit, unless you're like, I don't know, some sort of what's that guy in Lord of the Rings? Gilgamesh? No. He has an axe? And my axe. What's his name? Gilgamesh? No. It's not Gilgamesh. It's Gimli. And thank you for yelling that at me. I could hear you. Gimli, it's like, unless you have Gimli feet or you're like a hobbit with like just wide, short feet, you're probably not. I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in years. Why am I thinking of that? I don't know. The Quad Cortex was a perfect size. You could hit the buttons, but it wasn't so big that you couldn't fit it on stuff. Like I could fit it on a Pedal Power 1, Pedal Power 2, Pedal Power, you know what I mean? Those boards everybody has. Man, I need some coffee or something. Look, here's what I'm trying to say. It was the perfect size, and it is the perfect size, but it is a little large for a pedal board. Like it would be by far the largest of all your pedals. Now, it would do the most, but as soon as you have any modeler on your board and you start adding pedals, you tend to add more and more and more pedals, because if you have a modeler and you're adding pedals to the board and it's a full-size all-in-one modeler, if you're adding pedals, it's because there's something you can't live without and you think you need something. And once you go, I love this thing, I love my Helix, but I need the reverbs on it. I need my Big Sky reverbs. Then you eventually go, oh, and also I want this overdrive. Oh, and also I kind of like my wah better. Oh, and by the way, I kind of like I can just make everything controlled from my timeline and my Big Sky. And then at that point, it's like, oh, there's this new thing that does these weird sounds. Maybe it's like the Chroma console. I'll get that. And pretty soon you're like, I'm actually just using my Helix for the amps. I'll switch to the HX Stomp, and boom, you're at something where inevitably you didn't need an all-in-one unit. Now, That's not always true, but I think it's often the case. So the Quad Cortex has been sitting in this middle ground where it's an all-in-one unit, but I think it's been super pedal board friendly. This is even more pedal board friendly. And what I notice are a couple things. If we look at this photo here, it looks like you have all the amp controls right there, and it looks like you have no screen. And it also, I noticed there's an effects on and off. So I think this is actually going to be like I think it's going to be a bit more like the Profiler player, the Kemper player. No screen, you control it maybe from your phone. I think they're also going to release some sort of a Wi-Fi control from your phone where QC control is going to go onto the phone now. Maybe they're going to give us an update on the Cloud Cortex app. So we'll have a mobile version where we're going to be able to download from the cloud. They'll probably just update the current cloud app to also, maybe have QC control that'll be accessible via Wi-Fi. It looks like there's a very similar thing here to how Kemper has designed the effects. It looks like we're going to have maybe a limited number of effects because it says effect. And then I can see it looks like the word, I think it's depth is on here. So it looks like we're going to be able to control effects. Here's what I'm interested in. Are they going to go full HX Stomp in the sense that they might say, hey, you can also just run this into a tube amp. You can defeat all the amps and blah, 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 and you have just the Quad Cortex effects. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. Look, I'm not calling anyone a copier or, sort of a copycat here. Quad Cortex copies other people's homework. Neural copies other people's homework. And I don't think that's something for them to be ashamed of. I think if you look at how they've designed the unit, the UI was obviously very much inspired by what Helix had done and what Axe Effects had done. It's a line, you draw your signal path. In that way, it's very flexible like Axe Effects. Not as flexible, but it's a little more like the Helix. It looked like a Helix that didn't come from Toys R Us, right? It looked like the non-KB toys of the Helix. I remember emailing Line 6 a long time ago, a designer at Line 6. Maybe it was Frank, maybe it was somebody else. I can't remember. This is back in my Gear Page days before I had even discovered digital. And I remember telling them, hey, I love the M9, but man, I don't understand why I said, I think in my head, I don't always think of this as like the all-in-one effects unit because it feels a little like a toy. And he said, well, it's made of metal, blah, blah, blah. And I answered back, I said, no, it's more like the box. It looks like a box you would see at a toy store. I said, all the other brands have boxes that are just like plain white cardboard. I remember him saying back to me, that's funny that you equate plain white cardboard with quality. Because at the time I did. EHX came like that. I was buying the big Memory Man. Full Tone came like that. A Fran Tone, I believe, came like that. All of the kind of boutique people who weren't Boss and DoD came in just plain white boxes with usually a sticker on top. And I remember saying, yeah, the box feels like it, came from KB Toys. And he said, it's funny you equate white cardboard with quality. White cardboard and, just brown cardboard, non ink cardboard, just regular cardboard is the cheapest boxes you can get. And that's why all the small companies get them. They're just cheap and it's cheap to put a sticker on. We actually pay a good amount to get our box with all those graphics and stuff on it. And I remember thinking that was funny, but I think it does inform the consumer in that way. The QC, I think, came out and just said, we're the most powerful thing on the market. We're quality. We're awesome. And we don't have a box with all sorts of fancy stuff. Instead, we have a black box that looks super elegant. And here's an entire book inside about how we made this device. I mean, that is pretty lovely. And it was lovely. So I think this thing is going to have the full suite of QC capability out of the box. I think they've seen that Fender has limited some of the effects. I don't think they're going to do that. I think you're going to have to use it on a phone or edit it on a phone, or else I'm sure, just hear me out. I'm sure they think they've come up with a very elegant workflow where you don't even need the screen. And the rest of us will hate it. But that's fine. It's great. You need to build a pedal where you can do everything right there, right? No one ever faulted the Eventide H9 for just having that one dial, because it was what it was, right? It was super easy, super powerful. It was basically the brain, and and it's like we can control it with other stuff. And I think for a lot of people, realistically, we're not all session guys, right? I already have my tones done, right? When I show up to play. I know what I'm playing. I've dialed in my tones. Maybe I need to make some adjustment because I don't know. You can do it. In a pinch, you can do it. It's not meant to be like pull up 100 reverbs per song on the fly. Maybe you're in a band or a church where they just call out the music and they start playing a new song. In that case, this probably isn't for you. It's the Nano Cortex. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to show up on a bunch of boards. Now, here's the important thing. How much is it going to cost? I think this is something. Let's remember that this was in production and was being teased well before the Tonex 1 came out. We're not going to touch Tonex 1. I think QC, though, is going to try to be competitive with HX Stomp. I think we're going to have a price tag on this of $499 or $599 US. That is my prediction. $499 or $599, because I think the guys in Quad Cortex at Neural, I think they saw their product as being superior to the Kemper, superior to the Helix, and they see their product as being superior to everybody. But then Tonex came out. And I'm not saying Tonex is superior, but I'm saying Tonex came out with a different use case. And in that use case, it's superior. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of what it promises and what it delivers at a certain price. Tonex came out and said, hey, we just got the amps. We just capture amps. There you go. It's right on your pedal board. You get 3 sounds of amps. There you go. If that was you, if that was what you wanted, Tonex was a better solution than Quad Cortex. Now, I believe Quad Cortex or Neural is attempting to compete in that space by making, I believe they're going to make a unit that has the capability of the slightly more expensive HX Stomp, but will compete and is going to be closer in price to the $399 Tonex. So I believe they will come in at $499, $599. I'd be really surprised if it was $399, but that might be what these guys want to do. Offer more capability at the same $399 price. I don't think there's going to be a battle for $99. I don't. Or the $129, whatever the Tonex 1 is, $99, $199, $129, I can't remember. I don't think there's going to be a battle for that. That's a race to the bottom. Tonex, I don't think has a ton of margin there. Maybe they do. Maybe Amplitude does, IK. But I don't know if they do. I think they get you into the ecosystem and they're trying to sell you on digital stuff. And I think they understand, hey, look, if we sell, 100,000 of these pedals and 10% of them give us an extra $50 in purchases because they're upgrading the software, or because, blah, 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 that averages out to an extra $10 or $12 of margin per pedal. And that is actually the price we want to sell it at, but we know that if we get these out to 100,000, 150,000, and we continue to upsell, that over time, the amount of money we'll make per unit actually goes up, not down. Even if we get competed down on price, it'll go up because we're trying to sell digital goods later. They also have the marketplace where they take a piece of everybody's sales there. So I think they're really thinking a robust digital marketplace on top of Tonex fixes the margin constraints and margin pressures they have. Quad Cortex, I think, is in market share mode, and they want to go take some of that market share. What do I know? I ran a couple $1 million companies, and one time negotiated $1 billion licensing agreement with a billionaire, billionaire. And I did that when there were a lot less billionaires because it was before 2020. But I don't know shit about shit, man. You know what I mean? I'm over here making Taco Bell sounds with the guitar. Some people say, HW, you take a fat bong rip before you do these things. No, dude. I'm just on a keto diet and I'm a little hungry because I haven't eaten in like 6 hours and my dinner's upstairs. And, you get a little of the, when you don't have enough fiber. You know what I'm saying? It's not an F sharp, but it'll do. I've been HW.